Chapter 9, Littagale, The Start of a Romance. A few weeks later, the two sets of siblings worked together on final construction of the lair's new door. Tor had found a shipwreck up the coast, and he'd hauled the salvageable material to the top of the mountain. Here they'd constructed one big, solid, roundish door that now covered the lair opening perfectly, like a final puzzle piece. Enormous door hinges were screwed, bolted, and welded, with Tor's help, of course, into the rocky mountain peak so that the door could swing open if pushed from below. The ship's mast had been welded into the entrance shaft to act as a catch and stop the door from swinging open down into the lair. Littagale sat straightening the chain from the ship's anchor. This was the last thing she needed for her construction project to be complete, and she stuck her tongue between her teeth in concentration as she worked. "It's beautiful up here," said Sophia. She sat with Lucky on the lap of her purple dress, and she reached to scratch his furry white ears. Littagale stopped to wipe her sweaty brow and also took in the view. It was beautiful. The mountain-top rocks glistened gray and white. Below them, green foliage ruffled in the breeze. She could see the kingdom of Archwild past the mountains, Oi-ho across the golden plains, and the edge of Defendal on the far side of the shimmering blue sea. "You have a lovely kingdom, Littagale," said Sophia. Her expression was much happier than upon her first arrival. "I think Nolan might have something to do with her good mood," thought Littagale with a smile. "Thank you." Littagale got the final kink out of the chain and stood. "I'm not in a hurry to rule over it, but I'm glad it's mine." Sophia set Lucky aside and jumped down from her seat to help. She joined Littagale on the deck-like door. They'd earlier carved a hole in the door for the chain to fall down through, and the princesses now stood and peeked down through the hole. Far below, they saw Nolan and Caspar looking up at them from the floor of the cavern. It was a little dizzying to be standing on the door looking straight down, but Littagale knew the door would hold. This job would really impress Maxwell and the carpenters back home, she thought with a smile. It's a shame it'll always be a secret. While Lucky hopped around on the door, the princesses fastened one end of the chain to the hook Tor had welded into the door. "He enjoys welding a little too much," thought Littagale, "but I guess it's the dragon's natural skill." When the chain was fastened securely, Littagale took the other end and fed it through the hole. "Heads up!" she yelled as the links descended. Soon enough, she heard the clatter of metal on stone as the chain touched down. The hook on their end held firm, and the door was officially finished. Littagale stood and wiped dirty hands on her dress. She smiled at Sophia. "Ready?" Sophia grabbed up Lucky and put him in a pouch she wore over her dress. "All ready." "Tor!" Littagale called. From far over the forest, the dragon came into view. He flew fast, his wings soaring wide and flapping with great thrusts, and a giant shadow trailed over the trees below. He let out an echoing roar, either for the fun of it or because a bird got in his way, who knew. At last, he flapped his wings over the mountain peak and descended to land beside the door and the princesses.
"Looks good,"
he told them with a pleased nod.
"All right, hop on. Let's test this out."
Littagale and Sophia were pros at riding the dragon by now, and they hurried over the rocks to climb up his scaly sides. They straddled him like a horse just above his wings near his neck, and they held onto his scales for dear life. Lucky, tucked securely in Sophia's pouch, squeaked with uncertainty. Littagale was pretty sure she heard Lucky whisper, "This isn't natural! Rabbits don't ride dragons! Eek!" Tor took a step forward and used a paw to pull open the door. The wooden hinges creaked but held strong. With the door fully open, Tor beat his wings and rose in the air again, then dove down into the lair. Littagale felt her stomach drop as he flew down, but when he landed she lurched into his warm scales. Both princesses and the rabbit piled off, and they all stood looking up at the open door. "Okay," said Littagale excitedly. She pointed to where the chain hung from the door down to the floor. "Just give it a little tug, and—" Tor took the chain in his front paw and gave it a short yank. The door overhead slammed down against the catch and held in place. "Woohoo!" Nolan yelled in triumph. "Good job, Littagale." Everyone clapped and cheered in congratulation. Littagale laughed happily and saw that her mood ring was glowing bright pink. "That does make things darker in here," said Nolan, looking around in the dim light.
"And thank you for that,"
Tor told Littagale.
"Now I might finally get a decent day's sleep, if you would all quit yammering."
He lifted an eyebrow. "Okay, we can take a hint," Littagale laughed up at him. "We'll leave you in peace and go in the spa for a while." "Ooh, the spa," said Sophia happily. Tor snorted a laugh.
"You're just like your mother."
Sophia's eyes widened. "What?"
Your mother,
said Tor as if this was old news.
She loved that spa. She was the one who bought all those lounge chairs and dragged them up the mountain. Shopping was definitely that woman's talent. She could find a bargain anywhere.
Casper gaped. Our mother was here?
Yes.
Tor raised an eyebrow at them.
It was your mother who told me to rescue Mattea. Did she never tell you that? How do you think your families became such good friends?
The four looked at each other in surprise. Casper, for clarification, asked, So our mom was the one who brought baby Nolan here while Mattea was with you? Baby Nolan is right here, he said in exasperation. Tor nodded, then looked solemnly down at Sophia and Casper.
I was sorry to hear your parents died. Your mother was a very kind woman, and I remember your father being very brave when he came to rescue her.
Sophia smiled sadly up at the dragon. Thank you. Nolan was thinking, I wonder why our moms never told us. Well, said Littagale, it's not like they ever spilled the secret about this place at all. Hard to tell us one part of the story without the other. Everyone looked like they agreed she was probably right. I'll have to ask Mom about this someday, thought Littagale. Tor yawned.
Anyway, I believe you said you were going to the spa.
With that, the dragon turned and curled up to sleep. The humans looked at each other and then headed into the princess cave. Discussing this revelation amongst themselves, they finally emerged into the spa room. Well, I don't know about you guys, said Nolan, stripping down to his shorts, but I think we've earned a little relaxation. With that, he cannonballed into the steaming pool. Littagale laughed as the warm water splashed her. She looked at Sophia and bobbed her head back toward the bedroom. Come with me. Last time Nolan came, our mom sent with him some bathing clothes. Oh, perfect! Sophia pulled Lucky from her pouch and set him to hop around the pool. The girls quickly changed into swimming clothes, and then they hurried back to join their brothers, who were doing handstands in the chest-deep pool. Littagale and Sophia jumped in, but they sat together on the side while their brothers showed off. Sophia sighed and stretched her long, dark legs under the water. I can't believe my mom was here, too. Littagale smiled. It's oddly comforting, isn't it? When I first got here, I told myself that if Mattea could live with Tor, I could too, and it's a bit like seeing a part of her past. Yes, that does make this special. Sophia looked over her with sincerity in her big brown eyes. I can never thank you enough for taking me in, Littagale. It's been nice to have the company. Well, Nolan would have visited you often enough. Sophia looked to where their brothers splashed around. With Casper here, I didn't really have anyone back home. Do you miss the rest of your family? Your friends? Littagale thought about that. Most of my friends have gotten married or moved away, she answered. But yes, I miss my family. Mom sends letters with Nolan every time he comes to visit, though. And Dad, too. She smiled. They're glad I'm having my little adventure, but I'm sure they're looking forward to the day I finally grow out of this. Sophia laughed. Well, you won't be going home anytime soon if these princes don't get better. Littagale laughed, too. A few more princes had tried to rescue them since Riddick Bowenship's failure. Most had insisted they only wanted to save Littagale for her kingdom. A few had said they wanted to rescue Sophia, but she'd known them and decided to pass. One prince had walked into the lair, seen Tor, and ran right back out again. Sophia looked thoughtful. I just wish there was something I could do to earn my keep around here. I know Tor doesn't usually do this for free. I wish I was good at something. Littagale tried to think. Well, now that his lair is going to stay dry, maybe you could sew him a giant bed. Sophia laughed. Nope, women in my family do not sew. My grandmother had a bit of trouble with a spinning wheel. No one has had much interest in the activity since, so sewing isn't a skill that's handed down. What do you like to do? Sophia thought about this and looked over at Lucky. Well, I'm good with animals. Lucky hopped over to her where her head rested against the ledge of the pool. He squeaked something in her ear, and Sophia let out a laugh before covering her mouth. She winked at the rabbit. Suddenly, Nolan choked and sputtered. He stood up out of the water and pointed at Sophia in shock. He spoke to you! Sophia's eyes widened. No, he didn't. Yes, he did. Nolan pointed at Lucky, then at her. Sophia and Lucky looked at each other, then at Nolan. Casper, bare-chested, stood up and wiped water off his face. What's going on? Animals talk to your sister. Casper made a face at her. Not you, too. Sophia looked flustered and said between her teeth to Nolan, No one is supposed to know animals talk. Nolan overdramatically rolled his eyes. Oh, please, everyone knows. She gaped at him. How? Because I'm bad at keeping the secret. he told her as if this defended him. Caspar nodded. That's true. Sophia, still flustered, looked at her brother and then swam forward to pull Nolan to the far side of the pool. They sat and immediately whispered angrily back and forth with emphatic gestures. Caspar made a face at Littagale and came to sit beside her. Well, talking cat's out of the bag. She chuckled. He looked at her suddenly. Do animals talk to you, too? Nope. Well, unless you count Tor. Ah, well, good. I didn't want to be the only one. Caspar rested his head on the ledge of the pool. They sat in silence for a minute as they watched their siblings argue. Littagale had enjoyed spending time with Caspar these past few weeks. He'd always been her favorite of Nolan's friends. She'd always had a bit of a crush on him as kids. And now... She looked down into the water and noticed her ring was glowing purple. That's new, she thought. What does purple mean? Caspar was looking around the room, searching for something. Rats, I thought I brought my things in here. There are plenty of towels. Littagale pointed at the shelves. No, Caspar continued to look around the lounge chairs. I thought I brought my... He looked flustered as he tried to remember the word. The mittens for my feet. Slippers? Yes. He smacked his head. She laughed uncontrollably, creating little ripples in the pool where they sat. Caspar chuckled at himself, then looked at her like he wanted to say something. Listen, Littagale, I just want to say, while we have a minute, I wanted to say that I'm sorry a decent prince hasn't come yet. Oh, she said with some disappointment. You are? Of course I am. But I'm sure someday a prince will work up his courage and finally take you back home. That is, if you want him to. I guess you could just die here, alone. No, I'm certain a prince will come whom you'll want to marry. At least, I hope you'll want to marry him. Littagale frowned and looked down into the steaming water. Her ring had turned black. I don't want to marry just anyone, she thought. The more princes who come and go, the more I think... She realized, suddenly and with certainty, that she didn't want some future unknown prince. She wanted the one who'd risked his life to come with Nolan in the first place. She wanted the one who'd bravely stood up to a dragon and asked him to save his sister. The one who'd offered to help her build the door. The one sitting beside her right now. He was the prince she wanted. But Caspar hopes another prince will come, she wondered. Littagale looked at her black ring again and tried not to cry. She glanced at Caspar and saw that he too had seen her ring. He blushed. Sorry, Littagale. I didn't mean... It's okay. I'll be going now. With that, Caspar lifted himself out of the pool and headed for the shelves of towels. Littagale sank back into the tub. She felt very disappointed and, if she was being honest with herself, maybe a little heartbroken.